How you doing? 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 My little strawberry, 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 strawberry. I hope you had a good day and a good week, a good week, a good week, a good week. So today I'm continuing reading some horror stories from Reddit, and last time I read from No Sleep, but this time I'm gonna read from Scary Stories. Scary Stories. And I'll definitely continue this series throughout the year, but I want to gauge your guys' interest right now during Halloween. But yeah, and this is the shirt that I was cutting in the No Sleep video. I'm very happy with how it turned out. Don't love how it's not rounded over here, but I don't really know how to fix that, so it is what it is. It is what it is. And I've got a sponsor for today's video. I was sent this bag by teddyblake. Teddyblake. It's very cute. I got it, actually, I chose this one as a gift for my mom for Christmas. Bit of an early Christmas gift. She has been needing a new bag anyway, and this would be a cute little going out bag. It's in her favorite color, a dark blue. My shirt's actually a darkish blue as well. I don't believe this is black. In some lighting it could look like that though. But yeah. I think it even says on the tag that it's the Dana Gold Small. And this is the 11-inch one. Just in case you were curious. But yeah. If you're interested, you can check them out. Thank you to them for sending me this. It's always crazy to me when I get like a sponsor or, I mean, they send you stuff, which is always crazy because I'm like, oh, thank you. Like you thought it was worth sending me something. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So yeah, I have their website and stuff linked in the description. But without further ado, let's get into the video. I was just kind of scrolling through the subreddit and I have it rated for the top posts for the past year. And I saw this one that kind of caught my eye, and it's called "My Name is Allison and I'm a Snuff Film Star." Maybe a little trigger warning if that's not your vibe, but if you are cool with it, then this is what we're gonna get into. It's not super explicit. I don't think I skimmed through it, but we'll see. My name is Allison and I'm a snuff film star. No, I don't have the source for the movies, and before you ask, it's not mainstream porn. You can find me by just googling my name. They're videos of me being murdered. Where would you even find those types of videos? The dark web, maybe? I don't know. I don't like watching myself being murdered. What I can tell you is I've starred in over 50 movies, and according to the guy who distributes them, I'm the most watched and most sought after snuff star in history, if that's even a thing. You're probably wondering how one would even get into that business. Well, the short answer is by accident. You don't wake up one day and decide you want to be murdered. In my case, I answered an ad looking for an amateur porn actress. I was just starting out in the business and the pay seemed reasonable. When I arrived at the location, which was a house in an upmarket location, it didn't raise any red flags. It all seemed legit until I asked to be paid up front. And the response was, let's see how you die first. Before I knew it, I was being held down and the cameras began rolling. All I can say is dying is like going to sleep during surgery. It's painful at the start and scary, but when your heart starts slowing down, you get a rush of euphoria and everything goes silent before the lights go out. I couldn't tell if there was an afterlife. I don't stay dead long enough to find out. It's like going to sleep without dreaming. There's a nanosecond of darkness before you wake up again. You would think that a guy whose business is death would be easily scared, but when I suddenly woke up as they were loading me into a shallow grave in the woods, he screamed like a little girl. I'm sorry, you wouldn't think that a guy. I think they mistyped that. It took some time to calm him down. You would swear it was him that was just brutally murdered with the way he reacted, but once the initial shock wore off, he looked me dead in the eye, no pun intended, and said, I'm going to make you a fucking star. It's giving Maxine, it's giving Pearl. I'm a fucking star. The whole world is gonna know my name. I will not accept a life I do not deserve. I need to do a Maxine video. Did you know my first ever video that I posted, I had done my braids, my makeup, and I wore a shirt that looked like hers. I literally cosplayed Maxine Minx in my first ever video. It's unlisted now, so you can't watch that video anymore because the audio was ass and I didn't want it up anymore. But I'll go back to my roots and I'll do Maxine Minx at some point in the future. I promise. Also, Maxine was so good. The sequel to the trilogy that came out. Obsessed. Literally obsessed. I can't go into details on how I get snuffed out, but I can say the money is great, more than I could ever make being in mainstream porn. The problem isn't the fact that my employer is a death dealer of women. Actually, no women have been murdered apart from me, of course, since I started. The problem is the reaction I'm starting to get the more my popularity grows. The surprising thing is the people who notice me are the most ordinary people you could imagine, not monsters that hide away in the shadows fantasizing about murdering women. I mean school teachers, doctors, and even young teenagers. The biggest shock for me was when I was sitting in a cafe and I was approached by a young dad who had his 2 young daughters with him. He sat staring at me while his daughters sat eating chocolate muffins. I knew why he was looking at me, even if he didn't. As I was finishing up my latte, I looked up to see him standing next to me with a strange grin on his face. "Do I know you from somewhere?" he suddenly asked. I was in my comfort clothes, a baggy t-shirt with a pair of sweatpants, and the tattoo of a pentagram on my arm was on show. He began studying me to figure out how he knew me, and when I was just about to speak, he noticed the tattoo on my arm. It was like a light switched on in his brain, and he suddenly realized where he knew me from. His face turned deathly pale, and he began to stutter a bit before he hurried himself and his daughters out of the cafe. I was never really worried about being watched before, because the men that watched me expected me to be dead. I also never gave a second thought to my tattoo being the thing that gave me away. I mean, how many girls out there have the same tattoo? When I got it done, I was told it was a popular choice. That all changed when I got a phone call from my mother. My poor mother had no clue about the type of business I was in. She always thought I was into some lifestyle stuff, like a trainer to the stars or something. I think the dream was better than the reality, and she always told her friends I was a successful businesswoman of some sort. Technically, she wasn't wrong. All that changed when she rang me in hysterics. She could barely contain herself over the phone. You're alive, is all she kept on repeating down the phone. After I calmed her down and reassured her I was very much alive, I waited until her breathing had slowed to a more relaxed state. Allison, for a moment I thought I was speaking to a ghost. My mother was always my biggest fan in life, and it broke my heart to hear her this upset. The police were here, men in suits, detectives, I think. They told me you were dead. Oh, my sweet girl, they told me you were dead. They had found blood and something about a tape or the internet. The bastards gave me a heart attack. I knew you weren't dead. That night, I went to stay with my mother, just to reassure her that I was still physically present, and to just hug her, mainly to reassure myself that I was definitely still present in the world. Deep down, I knew what this was about. Of course, someone who wasn't a degenerate monster was going to watch my movies and try to put a name on the woman who should be somewhere in a shallow grave. But I always thought people would think the movies were just great fakes, because you can only be the star of one snuff film, not 50. True. A few weeks had passed, and apart from my mother losing a year or two of her life, things had settled down. I decided to quit. It was never going to be a long-term thing, but if I was going to stop, my final movie was going to be my best. Go out with a bang, I always say. It was the day of the shoot, and on the way to the location, I couldn't escape the feeling I was being watched. I put it down to my nerves because I was going to die in the most brutal way possible. It was going to be so bad no one was ever going to think it was faked, and the fact that it was going to be the last video of me made it all sound all the more believable. I knew it was going to be painful, but the pain never lasted, and all I was thinking was, it's going to be a spectacular death, and it was. But as the euphoria swept over me and I began to slip into the darkness, I watched as the men in SWAT gear burst into the room, followed by men in suits. As always, I came back to life with a big gasp of air, like a baby taking its first breath after being expelled from the womb. I was expecting to be in the room where I was murdered, but this time I found myself on a cold metal slab. As I looked around what looked like an operating room, I saw two men in suits. One was smiling while the other appeared to hand over money from his wallet. "Hi, welcome back. I just bet my colleague $50 that you would come back from the dead," he said as he put the note into his top pocket. "I must say I'm a big fan of your movies. Damsel in the Dungeon is my personal favorite," said the smartly dressed man as he smiled down at me. This was the first time I had ever felt in danger. A sudden panic washed over me as I tried to get up off the table. The two men in suits smiled at each other before handing me a hospital gown. "Where am I?" I asked nervously. "You have nothing to worry about. It's not like we're going to kill you," said one of the men as they burst out laughing. The two men walked into an interview room and sat me down at a table opposite them. "You still haven't told me who you are and my reasons for being here." The two men adjusted themselves into a more serious posture. "Sorry for the confusion. My name is Agent Harris, and my colleague here is Agent Butler." I look across at the two young agents sitting across from me as their frozen expressions fixate on me. "Agents, are you FBI or something?" I nervously asked. One of the agents gave a disgruntled laugh as if I offended him. "Close, we're the CIA." "What do you want with me? I didn't know dying was illegal." The two men sat upright as one of them put a picture of a woman in front of me. "We need your help with a delicate situation. It's of the utmost importance to the security of this country." I looked down at the picture of a woman who looked strangely enough like me. Apart from her expensive-looking attire and different-colored hair, we had the same facial features, and we looked to be the same height. The woman in the picture is the wife of the Russian Minister for the Defense of Sergei Shoigu, said the agent with a sound of urgency in his voice. "What does this have to do with me?" I asked. "She has a lot of secrets that could be very important to us. The problem is her husband isn't a nice man. Fortunately for us, he treats her like a dog, so she wants a way out of the marriage, but being the man he is, he's not going to let her go so easily. I still don't get what this has to do with me." The two agents look at each other before fixating their stares at me again. "Sergei is a very powerful man. Even if we got her out of the country, we couldn't guarantee her safely. The only way we could do that is if we faked her death, but it has to look convincing, and that is where you come in." It suddenly began to make sense. I remember a friend of mine who was big into conspiracy theories, and I would always bang on about how the moon landings were faked in a studio. "So would I be correct in thinking you want me to make another movie, given my special talent?" The two agents look at each other again, but this time with a smile. "She's catches on quick. I'm beginning to like her already." I picked up the picture again and stared at the woman looking back at me with pain in her eyes and a painted-on smile. "How much does this gig pay?" That's actually really cool. It's disturbing, but I didn't really think it was, actually scary, if that makes sense. I don't know. I want to read a book about that. That's the one thing I really like about these Reddit post stories is that a lot of these people are really good writers. So it's so cool to see the stories that they write. I really hope these people make books one day, you know what I mean? That is so cool. Someone said, do you mind me narrating this on my channel? I just did that. I never think to ask permission, actually. I'm just like, people make Reddit stories all the time. Or Reddit videos all the time. I'll link the subreddit, though. I should definitely start linking the stories just so you guys can read them. As long as they don't get deleted, you know. also sorry if I feel like my voice cut out a little bit when I was reading this, but I've been sick the past couple days and I finally just started feeling better today, so I'm still a little, voice is still a little weak, but yeah. But this one was good. Also, I just realized that not everyone knows what a snuff film is. Snuff films basically, like, someone is quite literally murdered on film. Like, it's not fake, it's not CGI, like, it's just a video of a murder. And there's, like, a lot of those on the dark web, which is really fucked. Sometimes there's, like, a sexual element to it, but I don't think there always is. But there definitely is, like, a genre of porn like that, which obviously is, you know, usually not consensual. Like, those videos are very much illegal, and I think it is some police officers' jobs to watch them and try to, like, you know, find the people responsible / find the body. Really fucked. But yeah, let's see. Oh my god, I think I've seen this one before. What's a weird or unexplained experience you had while in the hospital? Back in August of 2020, I woke up one morning and passed out and threw up blood all over the place. I was rushed to the hospital, where I then learned that I was very close to dying because I had a massive stomach ulcer and I was bleeding extremely badly from my stomach. It had filled up with blood while at the hospital. Before being rushed into emergency surgery, I was terrified. I didn't know if I was going to make it, and this woman came into my room. She looked at me and asked, "Are you doing okay?" I said, "Yeah." She then asked, "Are you scared?" I said, "Yes, I'm not religious at all." But she asked if she could pray for me, and I was so worried about not seeing my kids again that I said, "Yes, please." I don't remember the prayer, but I remember she finished and told me everything is going to be okay, and that she'd see me later, and then she left. I never saw her again after that. I was in the hospital for 17 days, then I thought about it, and I realized she wasn't dressed like the nurses or any of the other staff. She wore all black, and it had me wondering who or what she was. I hadn't been given any pain medicine yet, so it wasn't a hallucination. I've been thinking about it for 3 years now, and I need answers. Interesting. Yeah, people are, like, explaining. I don't know if this is a real story or not. It probably is. It's not the best written, I'll be honest. There's no sentences. This is one run-on sentence for the entire paragraph, but I did my best to make it make sense. Interesting. Here's one that's supposed to be really good. It's called Run. Run, and if you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl, but whatever you do, don't stop. It's only been an hour since everyone on Earth, as far as I could tell, heard those same words. I was already walking through the park when I heard them, and after seeing what happens, I won't be stopping anytime soon. It's been 2 hours now. I've kept walking. I'm tired, but stopping isn't an option. Some people try driving, but the act of getting in a car requires stopping even for the briefest moment. And as those already driving, when they heard the rules, soon found out, it's impossible to move indefinitely in a vehicle, especially in a crowded city. Their screams kept me moving. It's been 4 hours now, and I'm exhausted, with the only thing pushing me forward being the fear of what awaits when I stop. And yes, I mean when, proven by plenty of those around me, eventually I'll have to stop. Some have just given up, accepted their fate, only to immediately regret the decision. Some just couldn't take the screams anymore, and most simply don't see the point of continuing. And with every step, I'm starting to become more like the latter. It's been around 6 hours, and for the first time, I saw what happens up close. I was walking aimlessly down an alley trying to get away from the madness when I saw a young man no more than 16 crying. It didn't even register to me at first until he made eye contact with me. He'd stopped moving. His eyes were bloodshot, and not just the whites around his pupils. I mean, the entirety of his eyes were crimson red. Black tears streamed down his expressionless face, and then he smiled. A wide, toothy smile that would have screamed joy if it wasn't followed by animalistic screams that would give the biggest horror fanatic nightmares. I wish I could say witnessing his dying moments was the most horrific thing that happened to me today, but then it hit me. The realization that I stopped moving. Yeah, I would probably stop to be like, but you gotta keep going. That's really good. There really can't be a part 2 with this one, because I feel like You're dead now. That was so good. And it is to die for, as someone commented. This one's cool. This one's called This Is Not a Suicide Note. 3 months ago, I learned of my uncle's passing. We weren't particularly close, but he left me one of his houses in his will. I was touched, but just wanted to sell it off. I'm a fairly new father of twin girls and didn't need another thing to manage right now. To speed up the process, I decided to travel across the country to live in the house until a sale was assured. My job just requires a laptop and phone, so I was approved to work remotely for the time being. Unfortunately, my wife had to stay at her job, so I had to come alone. At first, I treated it as a mini vacation. I'd hoped it would only last a week, but the process was more involved than I thought. I had a realtor taking care of most things, but after a month, I'm still here. I noticed things going wrong right away. Stuff was never where I last placed it. I'd see shadows out in the corner of my eye. I'd lost track of time constantly. I thought it was because of stress, loneliness. Except for the few times the realtor came by with the prospective buyers, the house was the quietest place I'd ever been in. Before I completely lost my mind, the neighbor came by with a dog. She was an elderly woman who explained that she had been dog sitting while my uncle was in the hospital. Now that I was here, she thought I should take Buster, the golden retriever. I thought the neighbor might have been forgetful because she seemed to think my uncle had just passed last week. Either way, I fell in love with Buster, and his presence was exactly what I needed. I even thought it would be a tremendous present to bring home to my girls. I just hoped my wife would feel the same way. However, even the dog could tell something was wrong with the house. Buster accepted his new living arrangements pretty quickly, but would never willingly go upstairs. This was alright with me at the time. I thought it would make it easier to keep track of him. Then Buster disappeared. Literally 1 second, he was standing right behind me as I opened the treat jar to give him a snack. My eyes left him for just a moment to put the jar back, and then he was gone. I ran through the whole house calling his name. The kitchen was connected to the living room, and on the other end of that was the master bedroom and study. The other end of the kitchen led to a dining room, which was connected to the entrance hall that also led into the living room and stairs to the second floor. After walking upstairs, you had a choice of right or left along a balcony that overlooked the living room on one side and the entrance on the other. Going left led immediately to the guest room and the game room. Going right led to 2 more guest rooms and a bathroom at the end of the hall. I looked in every room and had to accept that somehow the dog made it outside, even though there was no doggy door and every door and window had been closed and locked. So I searched the surrounding neighborhood for an hour before giving up. I was thinking about making flyers when I opened the front door and heard Buster scrambling towards me from the kitchen. I was ecstatic, of course, but I couldn't just wrap that around my head. How could I have missed him? I let Buster sleep in the bed with me that night. In hindsight, it was a huge mistake, but it made me feel better at the time. Things picked up at work, though, and I soon forgot about all the strangeness surrounding this house. Clients called me constantly, but we were getting a lot done, and I landed multiple large contracts in a row. I was working around the clock, but I knew I'd be due to a promotion once I returned to the home office. Several times I'd get lost in a phone call or spreadsheet and suddenly find that it was nighttime. I'd be so absorbed with work that I would block out Buster whining for food or to go outside. I started to set alarms to keep track, but I had too many important clients to slow down. I was on top of the world, but my health was starting to suffer. I'd forget to eat and even sleep sometimes. There was always something else to do or someone to talk to. I even got better at taking care of Buster, better than I was taking care of myself, at least. Then my good mood ended with a bang, literally. Buster was whining behind me as I finished another spreadsheet. Then we both heard a door slam upstairs. For the first time since I brought him inside, Buster ran upstairs by himself. I almost called the cops, but I felt silly with the phone in my hand. I started to doubt I had heard anything at all. But if there was an intruder, surely Buster would have been making more noise, so I mustered all the courage I could manage and crept upstairs with the frying pan as my weapon. It was dark upstairs, but enough moonlight was coming in from the downstairs window for me to make out Buster standing in front of the bathroom. I had purposely closed every door when I last came through here looking for the lost dog, but this door was now wide open. I flipped on the hallway light, but nothing happened. With no better ideas, I raised my frying pan high and walked slowly to the bathroom. There was no window in here, so it was pure darkness inside. I was terrified. Bizarrely, Buster just looked frozen. His tail stood straight up, and he just stood there, pointed towards the door. I tried taking it as a good sign, but that he still wasn't barking. That's what finally got me through the threshold and into the bathroom. The whole time, my eyes had been getting used to the darkness, and the bathroom was too small for them to have been anyone there without me noticing. I started to relax when I took a step forward into something sticky. I suddenly realized I had my cell phone in my pocket. I pulled it out and turned it on to cast some light on the floor. I immediately dropped it at the sight of the bright red liquid that surrounded my feet. I fled upstairs, and this triggered Buster to follow. This time I had no trouble calling the police. Thankfully, there was already a patrol car nearby, so 2 officers arrived within a couple minutes. Their powerful flashlights cut through the darkness like knives, but they soon found nothing was wrong with the upstairs lights. Something did appear to be wrong with my pipes, though, as they called out from above that the puddle was just rusty water. Because of their insistence, I climbed up the stairs again and clearly saw a muddy brown puddle in the bathroom. The banging must have been from a pipe breaking. Both cops had a laugh at my expense, but were otherwise understanding. They even gave me a number of a good plumber, though my cell phone was ruined after I dropped it and left it in the puddle. I would have to use the one landline in the kitchen from now on. I let them out and promised to call the plumber first thing in the morning. Yet, as exhausted as I was, I couldn't go to sleep over that excitement, so I stayed up to draft some more important documents for my company. Before I knew it, Buster had made another mess in the living room. I was dead tired and said some things to Buster that maybe I shouldn't have, and I did some things to him that I know now I really shouldn't have. I decided to do something about the stress I had been under, and I spoke to my supervisor that same morning. To my surprise, they were happy to let me have a vacation off as the week off as a sort of mental vacation. Just like that, all my outstanding work was taken away. With nothing else to do, I tried to focus on Buster. I played games with him and fed him a bunch of treats to make up for my earlier neglect. Then I found my first message. I didn't notice it for some time since I had been avoiding the second floor, but I realized that I hadn't actually called the plumber. Before doing so, I went upstairs to see if things had gotten any worse. Instead, I immediately saw a message written in red on the hallway wall. It read, "Losing your mind?" ? For a second, I kinda did. I was scared to death at the thought that someone had to have sneaked into my house while I was there, probably when I was sleeping. I couldn't bear repeating everything I did or did right after. Let's just say I hadn't become any braver since the banging. Eventually, I unlocked my bedroom door and made my way to the kitchen with Buster leading the way. I called the police again. The same 2 officers were able to show up, and then slowly we cleared every inch of the house. Yet we found no one. Everything was locked, no sign of forced entry. The police actually took me seriously, something that bewildered me at the time, and admitted that this isn't the first house in this neighborhood to experience this. There had been a series of break-ins and nothing was stolen, but the police officers still offered to have a car sit outside for the night. Even though I took them up on this, I soon realized I'd never get to sleep tonight in this house, so I called my only friend in town, and really in the whole state, an old college roommate who coincidentally lived 30 minutes away. He offered to pick me and Buster up in a few hours, so I busied myself with packing up my suitcase. I didn't know how long I would need, so I pretty much packed everything and I'd brought with me to the house in the first place. I left my room to pick up some doggy toys, and my friend called saying he was waiting outside. I decided to hang up the phone and meet him immediately. I needed the human company, and he would help me move my stuff, but the driveway was empty. There was no friend, no car. I called him back immediately, and he insisted I was outside. I listened to him get out of his car and walk up to the front door. He knocked, and I could hear the door open and an elderly woman greet him. My friend asked for my name and mentioned my uncle. The woman said she had never heard of either of us. After thanking her, my friend left and asked me if I had gotten all that. I told him I must have given him the wrong address. He rattled off the correct one and confirmed he was there. After I asked him to wait, I left the house again. I walked out to the street and looked at the numbers written on the curb and on the mailbox. Only there weren't any numbers, just a message, "Losing your mind," on the curb, written in red. The temptation to leave right away was great. I could just start walking and never stop, but I had to get my stuff and, more importantly, Buster. So I entered the house one last time. When I came back to the room, my suitcase was empty. Everything that I just spent the last hour packing up, was back in its proper place. Despite how impossible this was, I focused on only one goal. I needed to leave. I put a leash on Buster and was shocked to see how haggard I was. I resolved to make it up to him when this was all over. I tried to leave out the front door like nothing was wrong, but I couldn't open it. The knob turned freely, but the deadbolt wouldn't slide back. I was really scared now, but Buster's presence helped. I knelt down to give him a hug, and he gave me an idea while licking my face. Whatever was happening, it sure wasn't the result of a maniac hiding in my house. Still, I didn't know what forces were actually opposing me, so I walked to the backyard and said loudly, "Well, Buster, time for a little walk." The glass door slid open easily. Buster bounded out happily. I guess it had been a long time since I let him outside. I followed more tentatively and for the first time examined the backyard closely. There was an iron fence surrounding the yard with another space between the bars that Buster could slip through. And then I saw it. A tree that grew too close to the fence and had several branches extending through and above it. I assumed the gate would be supernaturally locked too, so this was my exit. Buster didn't need any prodding. He waited patiently for me on the other side as I painfully pulled myself up and over the fence. I was suddenly aware of how weak and tired my recent lifestyle had made me, and I was in the process of climbing down the tree on the other side. Buster growled once and then took off like a shot towards a nearby hill. I jumped down and gave chase. He disappeared over the top, and I scrambled to keep up on the surprisingly steep surface. Luckily, I found where someone had laid some stone bricks into the side for an easier way up. It was still steep enough that I had to focus on placing my feet correctly to keep from sliding, so I was looking down when my next reach up resulted in my hand grabbing carpet. Confused, I looked up, seeing the second floor landing. I looked down to see the rest of the stairs that led to the entrance hall and living room of the house. Holy shit. Buster was nowhere to be found. Demoralized and dead tired, I crawled the final steps and just sat on the landing for a while, occasionally calling for Buster. Eventually, the kitchen phone rang. Whatever ghosts were messing with me, I realized they couldn't stop outside voices from helping. I tumbled down the stairs in my haste and landed hard on the cold tiles below. But I was only dazed for a second, and soon was in the kitchen with my phone in my hand. My wife's warm voice filled me with hope. She was concerned that she hadn't heard from me in a while. I couldn't recall the last time I'd even tried. She was trying to tell me that my work hadn't heard from me in a week, while I tried to tell her to call the police. Her words gave me pause, though. I asked, "What do you mean I was given the week off?" "What do you mean I was given the week off?" "Dear, I thought you were supposed to continue working as soon as you got there." Yeah, but they gave me a week off because of all the stress I've been under." "Wait a second, how long have I been out here?" "Honey, you've been gone almost 9 days. My stomach sunk, but I didn't hesitate to say, "Listen, you need to call the cops. Something is wrong. I think I'm having a medical emergency." I had just been trying to come up with an excuse to limit the amount of follow-up questions, but I ended up realizing that this was actually the most likely explanation. Maybe I was suffering from a gas leak or brain tumor. Ironically, either of those options seemed preferable than living in a haunted house. My wife asked, "Baby, what's wrong? Are you okay?" I thought I saw a shadow move out of the corner of my eye as I answered, "Yes, I'm okay, but no, I need help. There's something wrong with this house." "You aren't making any sense. Just listen to me. Call the police and tell them my uncle's name. Tell them to come to this house and an ambulance might be needed. Please help me." "Please help you? Pretty please with a cherry on top?" I stared at the phone in my hand as my wife's voice continued to come out of it. It sounded like her, but in a mocking tone I've never heard from her before. She said, "Does your tummy hurt? When's the last time you ate? I wonder what Buster tastes like." Bitch, what the fuck? Oh my god. I slammed the phone down, but whatever it was on the other side was right. My stomach was hurting. I couldn't remember the last time I had eaten. On a cue, I heard Buster whining from upstairs. Only after I started running towards the stairs did I notice just how bruised and sore my legs were from the spill down the spill down those steps. I pushed through the pain and climbed the stairs yet again. Buster was back in front of the bathroom, lying on his side and looking thinner than I had ever seen him. "Losing your mind" was written all over the hallway now, including on the ceiling and floor. I no longer had any doubts the messages were written in blood. Some of them were still dripping. I walked over and picked up Buster while a banging started at my front door. I would have jumped if Buster hadn't been weighing me down. I heard the front door open and whoever it was identified themselves as police. I even recognized the voice as belonging to one of the officers who had visited previously. Why can't I remember his name? After calling out that I was upstairs, I turned with Buster and found the hallway stretched before me, many times its original length. Despite how thin he looked, Buster felt heavier than ever. I knew this was all just some sort of trick to not get me in touch with the police officer. I thought I must have really been talking to my wife. She had to have come through with calling the police, and the ghost just distorted the end of the call. So I started my trek back to the stairs and shuffled my feet as fast as I could, yelling all the way, But then a voice answered the police officer, a woman's voice, my wife's voice. I could hear her say, "I'm sorry, my husband wasn't feeling well. He's resting in the bedroom. Can I help you?" I screamed as loud as I could just to get attention, but it was no use. I heard the officer say, "I'd like to check up on him all the same." Sure, come in." I was sweating profusely, while every step seemed to get me nowhere. I tried to speed up, but the hallway just stretched further, and then I heard a man's blood-curdling scream from downstairs. Suddenly the hallway snapped back, and I found myself somehow right at the top of the stairs. My momentum couldn't be stopped. I fell down the stairs and landed hard on top of Buster. I howled in pain. He howled in pain, but at least he was alive. I saw a long, thick trail of blood go around the corner and under my closed bedroom door. There was still a shadow of something under the door. I painfully crept to the kitchen and grabbed my trusty frying pan before making my way to the bedroom door as quietly as I could. My eyes watched the moving shadows nervously. Whatever was waiting there had killed a man. That meant it could kill me. But if it could have a physical impact, then surely it could be susceptible to physical impact too. So I raised the frying pan and slowly started to turn the handle. Before I made much progress, the door flew open on its own, and something turned suddenly to me. I swung my frying pan down. The cop stood before me, a smile frozen on his face. On his face. We both looked down at the knife plunged into his chest. My hand was still wrapped around the handle. He fell to the side, and I fell backwards to sit heavily on the now clean floor. I was positive I'd picked up the frying pan. I could remember its weight, but now I also remembered going to the kitchen and pulling out the knife. I seriously wondered if I was losing my mind. I looked down to find I had the knife in my hands again. I dropped it at once and crawled back to check on Buster. He wasn't moving. I put my head on his flank and was devastated to feel he was still warm but not breathing. I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. I did nothing for a long time. I was lethargic, but somehow made it to the couch in the living room. I waited there until nightfall and then slept on the couch. When I woke up, I waited some more. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, but nothing horrible was happening to me while I waited. I wasn't in a hurry to change that. But the bodies of Buster and the cop were still there. I needed to do something. My stomach rumbled as I finally got off the couch. That was another problem with just staying put. First things first, I found a shovel in an outdoor closet attached to the backyard porch. Digging the hole was exhausting, so I settled for just burying Buster now. I planned on getting to the cop after finding something to eat. I picked up Buster and carried him outside. His fur was still so warm it was hard to believe he was gone, but there was no life behind his big brown eyes. I gently laid him down on the hole and got to work. Sometime later, I wandered into the kitchen and raided the pantry. The house was quiet apart from my efforts. When I stopped moving, the silence was complete. I wondered if the ghosts had just been trying to make me a murderer after all. Now that the goal had been met, maybe they would leave me alone for a while. Just in time, because I was starving and didn't need any more distractions, I opened a box of cereal and had a handful up to my lips when I paused. How could I tell I was actually eating what I was looking at? What if I had actually been opening a box of rat poison? I still wasn't sure what these ghosts were capable of. I imagined the food turning into worms after it was already in my mouth, and with that thought I threw the cereal to the ground and stomped off, no longer hungry. I needed to concentrate my efforts on leaving this place. Right on cue, I walked by the front door. It was wide open. Instinctively, I made a leap for it before stopping with my outstretched hand just a foot short of the door. This had to be another trick. I could see the door slamming shut in my face, or even taking a few of my fingers with it. I could feel a breeze enter the house, but I was too scared to move. This was the most impossible situation I had ever been in or heard of. All my senses had failed me before. However, my need for freedom eventually caused my feet to move. Upon slowly exiting the house, I saw the cop car just sitting in my driveway. The door was unlocked and the keys were sitting in the front seat. My mind went wild trying to explain the situation. Maybe the cop was secretly a murderer and had killed previous owners of this house. Maybe his sacrifice helped them move on. I couldn't think of any other explanation for my good luck at the time, so I just pushed my misgivings down and got in. I drove out of the neighborhood without incident, but I had new problems. I was in an unfamiliar city, driving a cop car with no money or other belongings on me, and I had no idea what to do next. So I kept driving. It felt good to be free of that house. It felt good to see the sun, so I kept driving on and on. Left turn, right turn, left turn, right turn, no idea where I'm going. And then I realized I hadn't seen any other cars on the road for some time. Where was everyone, and where was I? The sinking feeling happened again in the pit of my stomach, but also around my whole body. I sunk back in the car seat and then realized I was sitting in an armchair, back in the living room of my uncle's house. My arms were up like I was still holding onto a steering wheel. I was starting to cry with frustration as I stood up and screamed. How long had I been sitting there with a stupid grin, moving my arms up and down like a madman? I turned around and saw my work laptop on the dining room table. It was on and glowing at me. I walked over to it and saw that something was already written down in this post. It read, "Lost your mind? Good. Now you won't mind losing the rest." Suddenly my fist felt weighed down. I raised it to find another kitchen knife in my hand. I dropped it immediately. I erased the message and started to type out a request for help. I ignored the screen and just focused on the keys, but I kept hitting them wrong and another message slowly formed. "I'm sorry I've disappointed you all. For the last time, goodbye." I could have screamed again, but I noticed something had changed. I wasn't in the dining room anymore. I was in the study. I kept writing and writing and writing, and my own words started to come out. I've sent out emails requesting help. I've posted on the local police department's Facebook for assistance, and I've tried just to keep writing no matter what. This is my last attempt to keep my sanity. Whenever I've tried to take a break, I find myself in a new room with new horrors descending on me. Once I opened the study door out to a hellish landscape and almost stepped out onto lava. I wasn't sure if it was all an illusion, but I didn't even want to have a vision of my feet burning, so I just closed the door and resumed writing. I'm not even sure this is all because of ghosts. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and the truth is simply that I have no idea what's going on. As I've gone over these crazy events, I've realized that I can't recall my uncle's name or what he looked like. I'm not even sure I ever had an uncle. I'm trying to think really hard about how I came here. Did I fly, drive? I can't remember. Have I always been here? Even weirder, I can't remember my realtor's name or even what gender they are. I've met them in person several times. Why don't I know things I should? I can't even remember the names of my daughters or my wife. Am I even a father? Am I even a person? I know I must be because here I am writing in this small study, but now that I think about it, I can't remember who my parents are, what they look like, or anything about my childhood. Now I just remember this house and all the nightmares, waking and otherwise, I've experienced here. I'm feeling a lot like I was back in the cop car. I found a way forward, but I really don't know what to do next. This isn't a way to live, and I'm getting more and more tired. I'm so hungry. And I'm finding it harder to focus. I keep hearing voices and they're getting louder. I know if I stop writing, I won't last long, but I'm running out of things to say. My hands are tired. I'm tired. So tired. Keyboard smash. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. I need to keep writing, but I don't know what to say anymore. What's my name? I don't know. I'll die if I stop writing. I'll die if I stop working. A, B, C, E, R, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, Y, X, A, N, D, Z. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. Dogs, Buster. I missed Buster. I wish I could pet him one last time, but was he ever real? Is anything? I'm so tired, so hungry, I need to focus. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy goodbye. The quick brown I'm sorry jumped over the pointed you lazy dogs goodbye. I'm quick, I've jumped, it's the real last time, lazy dogs. I'm sorry I jumped over. Disappointed you lazy for the lazy dogs goodbye. I'm sorry I've disappointed you all for the last time, goodbye. Oh my god, and then someone commented, "How do I know if this isn't real? This type of thing is to be my worst nightmare. Hashtag RipBuster." And then OP replied, "I'm a good dog, I know I am. I let my human sleep and work, and I only bother him when I must. I wish he fed me more, I wish he took me out more, but he's my human and I love him. If only I could help him, he's not well. He keeps talking to himself, to the walls. I watch him run up and down the stairs, I watch him walk in circles, I watch him try so hard to get right back to where he started. Sometimes he doesn't hear me no matter how much noise I make. I wonder what's wrong with him. Today he fell down the stairs and he just opened his bedroom door and fell down in front of it too. I'm starting to get really worried about him. He came over and cried while laying his head down on me. I tried to be the best pillow I could for him. Then he dug a hole bigger than any bone I've ever seen. When he was done, he came in to give me a hug, a big hug. This made me very happy, but then he took me outside and laid me in the hole. I'm a good dog, so I stayed right where he put me. My human started to fill the hole with dirt. I think he lost sight of me again because he kept hitting me with the shovel no matter where I tried to stay. I didn't want to mess up what he was doing. Now that I think about it, he must have realized he couldn't take care of me. He was just doing what I did with Bones to save them for later. It made me happy to know he wanted to save me for later. But because I'm a living, reasonable, intelligent creature, I ended up hopping out of the hole before it got too dangerous. My human didn't notice and kept shoveling dirt into the hole. I'm not sure what's wrong with him, but it's clear that he needs some space. Until my human feels better, I'll just hang out in these nearby woods, which are stocked with everything I need to live a long and happy life, just in case. I appreciate that they good ending. The dog is just hanging out. He's just waiting. He's okay. Oh, what a good boy. This is so fucked. This is like the type of psychological horror shit that I love, though. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed. I really like that last story. That one was definitely my favorite. I love it when it's like written from the POV of someone who's like losing their mind. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed,